So, good evening, friends. We'll start with the session. Yesterday, we have discussed about the second condition, what happens when two natural dissimilar diseases mix inside one human being. All those things, all those measures, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann tries to explain only in order to explain the authenticity, whatever he is explaining. Whatever is collected from the allopathic journals. And he explained it to the world that this is not what I am saying, this is what happens in the nature, and these are the things not observed by me, but these are the things which were observed by the people. And the same inference is there, that first condition, when two dissimilar diseases meets inside one human being in a natural way, if the older one is stronger, it repels the new one. And it is like the similar thing, if the disease is stronger, the poor medicines never works over there, it gets repelled. For example, a tuberculosis is there and it never reacts to general antibiotics. Second condition, which we have discussed in length in yesterday's lecture, that is the when two dissimilar diseases mix inside one human being in natural way. If the older one is weaker, the new one suspends the weaker one for time being. It runs its course, and after completing its course, the old one reappears and again starts developing. And multiple examples of this condition Hahnemann have explained over there, and all those things matters a lot. So first two conditions which already we have discussed in length, so there is no time for us to again go for it. Let us start with the third one, and that is explained in the aphorism number 40. So we'll start with the aphorism number 40. So third condition, what is this? Or the new disease, after having long acted upon the organism, at length joins the old one that is dissimilar to it and forms it a complex disease, so that each of them occupies a particular locality in the organism, namely the organs peculiarly adapted for it. And as it were, only the place specially belonging to it, whilst it leaves the rest of the other disease that is dissimilar to it. Thus, a syphilitic patient may become a psoriatic and vice versa. As two diseases dissimilar to each other, they cannot cure one another. And this is, he has written it in italics. So this is the thing, the third condition, and which is very, very common nowadays. The patients are there in a complex form. The original disease remains as it is. The person was treated for the COVID, and lot of antibiotics, lot of steroids are used, and person who used to suffer from the COVID-19 suffers from the complex, and there are now many more diseases. The patient might suffer from avascular necrosis of femoral head. Patient might suffer from the diabetes mellitus along with some pathology. And this is how it develops. It runs its course. And at the same time, if new medicine added and given for longer time of duration, it forms the complex over there. Rheumatoid arthritis patients generally who are continuously on the steroids generally suffers from such types of problems. They suffer, rheumatoid arthritis remains as it is, and along with that, some diabetes develops, sometimes some osteoporosis develops, sometimes in some cases there is a vascular necrosis develops. So these are the complexes which we used to get many more. And this is the third condition. The complex is formed. So what he says over there in italics, as two diseases dissimilar to each other, they cannot cure one another. At first, the venereal symptoms are kept in abeyance and suspended when the psoriatic eruptions begins to appear. In course of time, however, as the syphilis is at least as strong as psora, the two join together, that is, each involves those parts of the organism only which are most adapted for it, and the patient is thereby rendered more diseased and more difficult to cure. So he explains over there that The secondary syphilis, a very simple example of it. A person who suffers from the primary syphilis, primary chancre, and who is treated with the local certain preparations. In older time, there were mercurial preparations they used to use locally for syphilis, syphilitic chancre. Nowadays, they used to use strong antibiotics for that. And these are the things which they used to use. After that, the patient feels that his primary chancre is cured. It remains hidden for some time. And when it reappears, in the secondary stage, it reappears along with the not only now remains the syphilitic symptoms of primary chancre, but along with that, the maculopapular rash of a psoric origin, generally involving the buccal cavity or even on extremities, which appear. Now the disease never remains to be a syphilitic only, it gets complicated with the psora. So it is a psora plus syphilis, two disorders comes together and it becomes a complex. So these are quite common entities. Sometimes there is one more entity which happens in secondary syphilis, that is the condylometallata, which is nothing but the expression of psychotic myelin. All three remains in one patient at a different places. One is present at the on the urethral tract in the form of primary chancre. One is in buccal cavity or on the body as a maculopapular rash. And third, condylometallata at the mucocutaneous junction. Three miasms comes together. This is what is called as a complex disease. And this is what is nothing but the complex disorder when two dissimilar diseases of equal strength appears in one body. When two dissimilar acute infectious diseases meets, as for example, smallpox and measles, one usually suspends the other, as has been before observed. Yet, there have also been severe epidemics of this kind, where in rare cases, two dissimilar acute diseases occurred simultaneously in one and the same body and for a short time combined as it were with each other. During an epidemic in which smallpox and measles were prevalent at the same time, among 300 cases in which these diseases avoided or suspended one another, and the measles attacked patients 20 days after the smallpox broke out, and smallpox, however, from 17 to 18 days after the appearance of measles, so that the first disease had previously completed its regular course. There was one single case in which P. Russell met with both these dissimilar diseases in a one person at the same time. So he has given one example who has from the P. Russell, who has observed that there was one case where two acute diseases at a time present in one patient. We see such types of complexes nowadays. Patient is suffering from typhoid plus malaria, a complex, both of acute or communicable diseases attacks the human being at the same time. One more example commonly we can get nowadays is the dengue along with the sometimes with malaria, dengue along with the typhoid, and these are nothing but the complexes. Both of them have a different character. Still, they remains in one human body at the same time, and two which we label by the name of complex. Even the modern science also called them as a complex. So this they call it is malaria plus typhoid complex. Same way, Hahnemann explains it is complex. Rennie witnessed the simultaneous occurrence of smallpox and measles in two girls. Jamoris, in his whole practice, only observed two such cases. Similar cases are to be found in Ettmuller's work and in the writings of a few others. Jenker saw cowpox. Cowpox run its regular course along with measles and along with the purpura. The cowpox went on its course undisturbed during mercurial treatment for syphilis at Jenner saw. See, these are the different examples which you used to find it out over there, and he has collected it from the different journals. The references are mentioned in the footnote. So this is whatever is written by Hahnemann is the authentic work, and he took the reference of the allopathic journals from where he has collected all the things. So if this is the thing which happens in the nature in such a way that two dissimilar diseases of equal strength, whether they acute or whether they are chronic, appears in one individual at a two different places in the same body, this is what is called as a complex. And such complexes are difficult to cure. So a simple chronic disease is a curable, but sometimes when it becomes mixed or sometimes when it becomes complex like this, then it becomes quite difficult to cure. And Hahnemann wants to explain same in relation with the allopathic treatment. So the original disease is there, plus the artificial disease which is developed because of the medicines which are used, because they don't have any correlation with the patient's symptomatology. There is absolutely two different entities. One is having symptomatology related with the disease, and the medicine whose action is absolutely different than the medicine, than the disease. And then when such types of two dissimilar entities enters inside one human being, at that time they forms the complex, and this is quite common in today. So we used to get such disorders off and on in our practice. We used to treat such disorders, but it takes long time. It never heals so fast. It never heals immediately. So such complexes you have to treat, you have to take time at least for a year, 6 months to year, you have to give time, and then we can give. So this is too important to understand that why such complexes form. And this third condition, which is used to happen off and on in allopathic practice, is responsible to form the complexes. And nowadays, patients are suffering with multiple syndromes. Nowadays, you get the different syndromes. Patient comes to you with different names, and they don't know the cause, and that's why every time label is there, either idiopathic, either psychosomatic, or third commonest is nowadays is the autoimmune. So such a label is given to the such disorders, but it is not autoimmune. Why autoimmunity develops? The autoimmunity is the result of this development of a complex, because the original chronic disease was suppressed in such a manner. So third condition, one has to understand in detail regarding this. And then he explains multiple examples of it in relation with the allopathy in the next aphorism. So 41 aphorism is related with the explanation of third condition in relation with the allopathy. So we'll start with 41. Much more frequent than the natural diseases associating with and complicating one another in the same body are the morbid complications, which in which the inappropriate medical treatment, the allopathic method, is apt to produce by long continued employment of unsuitable drugs. And this is quite common. This happens off and on. This develops off and on. Person is suffering from asthma and continuously using the allopathic medicine since a long time, and suffers from the diabetes along with that. There are many such types of disorders. Patients who are there have hypertension, they have started some, their cholesterol levels are little bit high, and they started with atorvastatin or such types of drugs, and the long-term use of it causes diabetes. So original disease was there, along with that something new has developed, and such complexes we used to find it out in day-to-day practice. To the natural disease which it is proposed to cure, there are then added, by the constant repetition of the unsuitable medicinal agent, the new, often very tedious, morbid conditions corresponding to the nature of this agent. These gradually coalesce with and complicate the chronic malady, which is dissimilar to them, which they were unable to cure by the similarity of action, that is homeopathically. Adding the old disease a new, dissimilar artificial malady of the chronic nature, and thus give a patient a double in place of a single disease. That is to say, render him much worse and much more difficult to cure, often quite incurable. So this is the common thing which happens. We get such types of diseases very often. We get many more complex cases of cancers. We get many more complex cases of autoimmune disorders. Sometimes patient comes with a big name and it is nothing but the complex form because of lot of drugging. And this happens because the original disease remains as it is and something newly added because of lot of use of medicine. And such types of complexes are rather difficult in your practice to treat. Here, patients should have patience, physician should have patience. And third important thing is that when you treat such types of cases, you have to tell the patient it takes longer time of duration to get cured. You have to handle such cases where one remedy is not sufficient. Here, multiple chronic antisoric remedies or anti-miasmatic remedies are required in sequence depending upon what state it presents. And such disorders are more becomes incurable than curable. Many of the cases for which advice is asked in medical journals, as also the records of other cases in medical writing, attest the truth of this. And this is what Hahnemann is saying 200 years back. This is the thing which he has explained. 200 years back, same was the state, and today it is much more, 100 times more. You get off and on such types of cases, off and on such types of variety, and these are most difficult to treat. Of a similar character are the frequent cases in which venereal chancrous disease, complicated especially with SORA or with the dyscrasia of condylomatous gonorrhea, is not cured by long continued or frequently repeated treatment with large doses of unsuitable mercurial preparation, but assumes its place in the organism beside the chronic mercurial affection that has been meantime gradually developed, and thus, along with often forms the hideous monster of complicated disease under the general name of masked venereal disease, which then, when not quite incurable, can only transform into the hell with the greatest difficulty. So this is common example explained by Hahnemann over there, that the syphilis runs through its four phases. Whenever syphilis develops, it develops first as a single painless hard ulcer, either on male or female genitalia, along with the bilateral horizontal group of inguinal lymphadenopathy, caused because of Treponema pallidum, is the primary chancre. There was a treatment only of a mercury or mercurial preparation in old days. So they used to prescribe mercury for the local application. The primary chancre disappears under the action of mercurial preparation because mercury is stronger in its action, and that's why it used to disappear from that place for some time. And when it disappears from that place for some time, again, when it reappears, when the palliative effect disappears, it reappears, and when it reappears, it goes into the secondary phase. The modern science also accepted, and the medicine also accepts the same thing. It runs through four phases. Now it enters into the secondary, and where, along with the primary chancre and inguinal lymphadenopathy, there appears the papular rash in the form of SORA, as well as the condylomata lata. And these are nothing but the complexes. Now, three types of varieties of diseases which develop in one individual. If you treat them locally again you use the mercurial preparation. For the rash, you apply some local application, and if you remove the condylomata with the help of knife or with the help of cautery, again the disease goes into the latent phase. Patient feels he is better, but internally disease was increasing. That latent phase is called as a tertiary syphilis or latent syphilis. During that period, no symptoms are there. But when it reappears, it involves the heart of the patient in the form of cardiosyphilis, or it involves the nerve and produces stapes dorsalis and paralysis, ultimately leading to the destruction of the human being, death of the human being. So this is the thing. He has given very good example how the complex forms. And this is quite common nowadays. We used to get many more complex disorders in our country. And those are many times are incurable for us, because here original disease has converted into incurable form because of such complexity. Hahnemann explains these are the conditions are more harmful for the patient. He has given that same example in the footnote. There is big footnote to this paragraph, and that footnote he explains about what is the role of mercury in syphilis. You in your materia medica, you get one sentence again and again. When you read the Hepar you'll get there the bad effects of mercury. If you read the mercurius, again you get bad effects of mercury. So these are nothing but the same thing. So these are the two. This is what the thing which was present at that time. Let us see what is given in the footnote. Footnote number 33, I think. So. For mercury, besides the morbid symptoms, which by virtue of similarity can cure the venereal disease homeopathically, has among its effects many others unlike those of syphilis. For instance, swelling and ulcerations of the bones, which, if it be employed in large doses, cause new maladies and commit great ravages in the body, especially when complicated with sora, as it's so frequently the case. So this is what just now I have explained that syphilis, when treated locally, it always enters through the secondary, tertiary, quaternary phase, and it becomes more and more complicated. So syphilis becomes sorosyphility, syphilis becomes sorosyphility, and when such mixed miasmatic traits are there, they are rather difficult to cure. Here, if you have such cases in your practice, you have to wait a lot. You have to keep the patients a lot. You have to tell the patient that they have to wait a lot. And you have to gradually treat such disorders. And that's why Hahnemann says such disorders are always more difficult to cure. There is one more paragraph regarding this dissimilarity is there. So we'll complete in today's session the paragraph number 42 so that it will complete the session about what happens when two natural dissimilar diseases mix inside one human being. So aphorism 42 is the last aphorism related with it. What he says, nature herself permits, as has been stated, in some cases, the simultaneous occurrence of two, indeed of three, natural diseases in one and the same body. This complication, lecture मध्ये 5 मिनिटांनी फोन करतो. Nature herself permits, as has been stated, in some cases, the simultaneous occurrence of two, indeed of three natural diseases in one and the same body. This complication, however, it must be remarked, happens only in case of two dissimilar diseases, which, according to the eternal laws of nature, do not remove, do not annihilate, cannot cure one another. But as it seems, both or all three remain, as it were, separate in the organism, and each takes possession of the parts and the systems peculiarly appropriate to it, which, on account of want of resemblance of these maladies to each other, can very well happen without disparagement to the unity of life. Disparagement means halkepana आणणे, अप्रतिष्ठा आणणे. And this is what is the double complex disease. So when such types of two disorders, three disorders appears in one human being, which are indissimilar in their presentation. So they are having absolutely different presentation. So sometimes you get a patient who is suffering from the typhoid. At the same time, his malaria test is found to be positive. Sometimes his even dengue test is positive. So all three complexes which are present inside one human being. And this happens many a times in even in acutes as well as in chronic. In chronics, this is quite common because of long continued use of the allopathic medicine. And such types of disorders generally are very difficult to handle. And today is the modern era regarding those disorders. And during Hahnemannian time, it was not so complex, but now it becomes so complex. After COVID, it has become more and more complex. After vaccination, it has become more complex. Many more patients are coming to you with different disorders after vaccination. And they tell that I was quite normal before vaccination. All of a sudden, I have started such and such a thing. What has happened? You have inoculated vaccine. You have inoculated new disease. and his along with his original disease, this inoculated disease, and something complex, the third entity which has developed. Just now, 2 days back, I heard a patient from the Qatar directly come to Sangamner, suffering from all of a sudden after the vaccination dose, latest dose he has taken, and he has started getting a cardiac embarrassment. He developed cardiac embarrassment right directly. His pulse rate varies. All of a sudden, it comes to 45. Suddenly, it goes to the 150. Sudden change, drastical change is happening in that patient. He was admitted twice over there in ICU. They have investigated all the things, everything. Angiography was done, everything was done, everything found to be normal. But this has been the thing which happened after the vaccination, and he did he ultimately he was in confused state what to do. They have said that there is nothing found, so we cannot do anything. We can give at least the drugs which controls the pulse, but even after taking or increasing the dose of that medicine, it was not in control, it was varying. And then he directly took the appointment, came to Zangamnet 2 days back, 3 days back. Such types of difficult cases which you used to get in day-to-day practice. Luckily, he was not having the pathology at present, but it is at the function level. It can turn toward the pathology if it remains persistent, or if you try to make the pulse fix with the help of remedy, allopathic remedy. This patient, you have to treat in such a manner that he should again go into the state of health. And such difficult cases are the results of such allopathic medication. So this is what he wants to explain. And modern era is an era of such complex disorder. So we have learned the three conditions, and these are three conditions we use to find it out in day-to-day practice. The first condition, that is the if the older one disease is stronger, it repels the action of newer one, and this is quite common when autoimmune disorders try to treat it with some medicines. Nothing happens, and they require steroids. Second condition, if older one is weaker and new disease which is stronger, if they are dissimilar in nature, the stronger one removes the weaker one temporarily, or it suspends the weaker one temporarily, runs its course, and when it returns, when it disappears, the older one reappears. And this is again we used to find it out. In fact, the whole allopathic palliation in chronic diseases depends upon this second condition. And the third one, that is today we have discussed, when two dissimilar diseases of equal strength in a natural way meets inside one human being, whether it may be acute or chronic, they forms the complexes in one individual. And even they sometimes forms third more disease also. And this is again very common, because many medicines which are used in one patient can cause many complexes in one individual. So Hahnemann always gives the proof. He was very perfect with his thoughts, with his aspects, and all those he tried to explain over there. So we have learned all these three conditions. We have understood them in relation with allopathy. And from tomorrow's session, we have to understand exactly opposite aspect of it. What happens when two natural similar diseases meet inside one human being? And also, it should be, he has also explained it with the help of examples collected from the allopathic journals in order to show his proof. So today, I think we'll finish over here for the 42 aphorism. Are there any queries we can discuss? And if there are no queries, we can leave. So any question?
गुड इवनिंग सर।
Good evening, Ali. Well,
सर वो आप बता रहे थे कि नक्स का जो एक्शन है वो दैट फॉर द 7 days के करीब होता है ना ऑलमोस्ट। अब 1 to 7 days सर। तो अब इंडिकेटेड रेमेडी एक क्रोनिक केस में अगर नक्स आ गई और मैंने स्टार्ट किया, उसको फायदा हुआ, अब मैं सर किस तरह से फिर अब नेक्स्ट उस पे स्विच करूंगा, कौन सी?
if you open Borix Matre Medica,
जी सर,
you can find it out that remedy relationship at the end. There are
राइट सर।
three complementary remedies. The
हम्म,
first remedy is the sulfur. The second is Kali carbonicum. and third is sepia. One is from soric miasm, another is from psychotic miasm, and third is from the tubercular miasm. So it depends.
Right, sir.
You can find it out very easily what the patient lands into a certain state after treating with acute. And when it lands into a certain state, then you have to catch what from what he is suffering, whether he requires sulfur, whether he requires kalika, whether he requires sepia. Many times, these out of these three, you get a chance. Sometimes it happens, it may produce another picture, and that remedy might be a next remedy for that patient. But that remedy should have that strength, that capacity. It is not nux unless the patient is acute enough. Nux is not a constitutional remedy forever. Nux
Right,
is a
sir.
remedy for that state, specific state. There is
Thank you,
one
sir.
question from Chetrali, sir, how to differentiate chronic disease from complex disease while case taking on the symptoms love. No, I could not understand. If you tell it directly so that it will become clear, Chetrali.
सर पेशंट जेव्हा येतो ना केस टेकिंग साठी तेव्हा तो हिस्ट्री देतो. मग हिस्ट्री देताना आपण डिफरन्शिएट कसं करायचं की हा क्रोनिकस डिसीज आहे किंवा कॉम्प्लेक्स डिसीज आहे, स्पेशली अशा केसेसमध्ये जिथे पेशंट बोलत नाही जास्त.
सगळ्यात महत्वाचं तो कशाने सफर झालाय, फ्रॉम व्हॉट ही इज सफरिंग फ्रॉम, दॅट इज मोर इम्पॉर्टंट. Second important thing, since when it is there. Third thing, whether he has consumed any allopathic medicines prior to it. Fourth thing, if there is a pathology, it is always generally a complex. Chronic diseases generally used to produce a complexes if it remained for longer time of duration and treated allopathically. In acutes, complexes are very easy to find it out. You can get 2-3 tests positive at the same time. That is what is acute complex. But in chronics, you get them very, very commonly. So a patient comes to you with, for example, a Crohn's disease. Crohn's disease, the patient tumchakade ala. If the patient is there with Crohn's disease, why Crohn's disease has developed? Then you call it as an autoimmune disorder. Then you go on investigations. Nothing is found. Many times it is labeled ulcerative colitis. Then they starts with steroid. Then they starts with mesacolon or something like that, and patient continuously remains on that. And again, after some time, patient may land into the cancer, and now they label same patient as a cancer. So such types of why the cancer has developed, why he has not cured, why he has not recovered, because it was not treated properly. It was just they tried to palliate and entered into the something else. That is the complex. That is the separation. So
सर
बोल.
सर इट मीन्स की जर कुठलाही डिसीज क्रोनिक डिसीज जर तो ॲलोपॅथीनी पॅलिएट केला असेल, ओनली देन इट गेट कन्वर्ट इनटू कॉम्प्लेक्स डिसीज, अदरवाइज नॉट.
No, that is one thing. Second important thing, many factors acts on you. If you are suffering from chronic disease at a time, and at the same time there are adverse effects happens on your body by different things, external things. The environment is not good. For example, environment, I'm not talking just a physical environment. The environment, everything which comes, psychological environment, there are disputes, there are stresses, there are problems, all those also acts. And when they acts at the same time, it may land into the complex also. So many more factors. It is not one factor, but more common factor is the drugging. More common factor is the drugging.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Any other query?
Hello, sir.
Huh?
Can I ask?
Yes. Patkan.
Yes, sir. Sir, as you said that the Baraita is slow in action and it bears repetition. But what is the criteria for repetition of dose in when we combine such as Baraita-Moor natronatum in such remedies, sir?
Baraita-Moor natronatum is not. It is carbon makes the Baraita more slower. Baraita itself is slower, and Baraita carb is slow. That's why Baraita carb becomes completely slow. When you add another element, it depends upon it. If it is natronatum, means there are 2-3 elements comes together. So here you should not go for repetition. They are not the well-proved remedy. And when you are not taking the or using the well-proved remedies, you should be in caution. Don't repeat it so. Wait for the results, because you don't have already the detailed symptomatology. Do you have the clear picture of it? No, it is synthetic prescription. And when you use synthetic prescription, you must be cautious enough while using all those measures. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Sir.
Okay, thank you.
We'll
सर
discuss
पेशंट
tomorrow.
आपल्याकडे ॲलोपॅथिक मेडिसिन